Okay, we are officially called to order. And we are discussing subcommittee assignments.
So we'll start back at the beginning of the agenda and just go through it again really quick.
There was no public audience. The minutes from the September 24th meeting are adopted unchanged. No motion necessary. Tanisha Grant is going to temporarily act as committee clerk until everyone else has a chance to think about whether they'd like to do that. The events subcommittee would like to highlight their program coming up on November 5th on Indigenous people. The data and audit group was not present right now. And the outreach committee gave an update on their activities regarding different groups to reach out to. And here we are. Annalise, did you want to join a subcommittee?
Yeah, which subcommittee has the least members and where would I be more useful? I mean, at this point, I don't really have a preference.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever I'm more useful, like where you need the more people.
I don't know. Any subcommittee chairs have any feelings on that?
Well, I would just say it's the one that you would prefer, that you would want to lend your hand to. I mean, I think it's more about motivation than it is about numbers. So, I mean, which one? It's your choice. And so that's what I would say. So it's what you would want to lend your hand to.
I would say data and audit is going to be more behind the scenes work. It's going to involve like data entry, analysis, things like that. Probably not as front facing. And the events committee is very front facing. And the
I think I like the
be.
event. I think I like the events.
Okay, great.
Welcome aboard. We'd love to have you.
All right.
It's funny because that's how we met.
That's right.
That's true. That's true.
Doing the Hispanic heritage. So.
Okay, so quickly, did anybody have a chance?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
For the event, for the library, for the Let's Talk, do they send you a Zoom link or does that come when you register?
It comes when you register.
Okay.
So if you go on the library website and register as an event, they'll send you a confirmation with the Zoom link.
Okay. I thought I did it, but I'll have to double check. Thanks.
Sometimes the Zoom link doesn't come until like the day of the event. So
Yes,
there's a lag time there.
Registration until noon that day.
Several hours before the event, we send it.
And just to jump in for a second, before we proceed, could Sue or Nicole, who are home in Simsbury, could you check and see if we are on SCTV, please?
Got it. I just saw your private chat.
Thank you.
I'll go check.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay, the liaison appointments. Did anyone have a chance to review the list of boards and commissions? And would anybody like to sign up for a particular board or commission to attend, to report back to us?
When I was looking at the list, it doesn't necessarily have the time in which they meet. So for me, it's a huge consideration.
You can, those links are all on the town website. So if you click through, you will see each one has a different schedule. So it would have been kind of awkward to put all the.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
But they are all on the schedule.
Okay.
I mean, if you go on the town calendar, you know, all the boards and commissions have a date. So what I would suggest is that, oh yeah, Sarah, did you want?
Well, I was just going to say, I would like to go to the planning commission.
Okay.
Daryl, since I'm the chair of a commission, can I have that count as my liaison?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Aging and Disability?
Aging and Disability Commission, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I am already on the Housing Authority board, so I can cover that, but I can do something else too. So I'm just putting Sarah down for that. Aging and Disability will be Diana. I think the Board of Education is something that we're all interested in, even though, you know, we do have representatives from the Equity Council here. If there are other things, you know, that go on with the Board of Ed, if anybody's interested in that, although we have Sue here, so.
It could be a natural liaison, not that
Could be
I
her.
would welcome anyone to our meetings, but
I
if
don't
I'm a
want to plop
natural
you in
liaison.
there, but. Okay, so I'm just gonna put Sue down for now, but anybody can go. Board of Ethics, I would say no. Board of Finance, also huge impact on the town. And it's a board that lots of people don't pay attention to and get till you get your tax bill. But most of their meetings don't even involve public audience, but I don't know, something to think about.
Carol, you can put my name there.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Board of Selectmen. Also very public.
I think Mary Margaret was saying something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, Mary Margaret. We can't hear you.
I said I would do that if you need it.
Oh, the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, great. Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Terrific.
You're in my field of vision as I'm looking at myself.
I've got Community for Care, so I can cover that. Conservation and Inland Wetlands is probably something pretty closely tied with, you know, planning and zoning, so I'm not sure how much that would relate to our work outside of planning and zoning. I think planning and zoning does relate to our work.
Planning is more direct connection, yeah. We're not gonna have someone liaise with everyone, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be for everybody, so. Well, anyway, take a look at the list, review the meeting times, and you can email me, Nicole, or Tanisha, and let us know.
Is there somebody doing the police?
Not yet. I think, Tanisha, did you say you wanted to do police or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That and the personnel subcommittee as well.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to put Tanisha down for Police Commission and Personnel Sub.
Is that a live document, that list where you have people, so I can see which ones are missing?
No, that I cut and pasted that onto your, it is live, you know, as a town document, so.
Do you have it, Annalise? Do you want me to resend it to you?
I have the list of the different committees and commissions, but I don't know which one of us is the liaison for each one, so I don't know which ones are still available. So that's.
Are there a couple you're interested in? Because we just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There are like 46 of them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but
we're not
that's
doing
why
all of them.
No, that's why I'm trying to see.
35 left.
35 left. That's great.
Yeah.
But the ones that I was interested in were just called for, but I want to see what else is there.
I think zoning would be one that we should do.
We don't have somebody in zoning. I thought,
No,
was that,
We have planning.
we have planning. Planning and zoning are two different committees.
okay, let me see when they're meeting.
There was a human relations one.
They don't meet.
Oh, okay.
It's listed, but it doesn't really exist.
Annalise, zoning meets on the first and third Mondays of the month at 7 o'clock.
First, and I can do that.
Except you're gonna be busy with us on the 1st.
Right.
Well, I can go on the 3rd.
You could.
Right. Yeah, you don't have, you know. This is just so that if something's happening, you can let us know and, you know, I think it's good that we all educate ourselves about what else is going on in town so we know what we should address. To see if there's any other ones that we really need to hit now. Let's see. Planning. Economic development? Yes, no? I can think about that one. Okay, like I said, if anybody has anything else that you're interested in, just let us know. We'll make up a list and distribute it at the next meeting so that everybody knows what everybody else is looking at.
Cheryl, can I just ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
Just going back to subcommittees. I know that we now have a list of individuals that are, volunteers to our effort.
Mhm.
Will there be a process to reach out or allow volunteers to participate on the subcommittees?
That's a great point. Yes. And that is probably one of those jobs that the clerk would do.
And if I can really quick, Cheryl, I think that we have to go back to the beginning of the agenda. It looks like we skipped ahead to making these assignments. And now that we're live, I think we need to go back to the action items and the subcommittee reports.
I did those. No?
I don't think, we didn't do them once we went live again.
Yeah,
So you want to do them like for the third time?
Now that we're live, if you can just go back over them really quick.
I think, well, we can do it again, but I think you reviewed, okay, the minutes were approved and adopted unchanged for the first action item. And then the clerk with Tanisha volunteering until someone took over. I think we covered that.
The event subcommittee just highlighted the program on Thursday on Indigenous people. Data and audit did not have a report, and outreach just reported continuing outreach to specific groups in town.
Thank you, just for the live version.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Chris Kelly, who's going to lead us through the goal setting discussion, because he is very organized.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to share my screen to a PowerPoint presentation to guide us through this. And if for any reason you're not seeing it, let me know. I'm just attempting to start the slideshow. All right, and hopefully everyone can see this. So, we're the Simsbury SPIRIT Committee, and I was asked to help guide us through taking a relook at our goals and priorities. So what I'm referring to is a goal review and calibration. Why are we doing this? A number of reasons. One is we're newly formed as a town committee, so the timing is perfect. We do have some new members and volunteers, so it makes sense to allow us to come back together and form a consensus as to what our priorities are. We passed, as the Board of Selectmen also passed, a resolution that has a whole host of guidance in it in terms of the desired impact that we'll have on the community. So it's appropriate to take a look at priorities relative to that. We're actually at an annual point. It's roughly about a year, a little bit over a year, when we set our initial goals that led to our initial 3 subcommittees. And I throw in here as number 5, whenever we take a look at goals, it's always good to just focus on each of us as individuals and really as the group. But, I start with each of us as individuals identifying how satisfied are we with the pace and impact that we're having. I always like to ask people on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being highest and 0 being lowest, what would your number be in terms of how fast we're working and how impactful we are? Because the goal review and calibration really is an opportunity to true up expectation with deliverables. So what we'll do is we'll take input tonight for final acceptance at the next meeting. And part of the reason that we'll do that is we do want to provide for public input on any of the things that we talk about tonight. With that said, I had a very simple agenda. I'm just going to walk through our history very quickly in less than 2 minutes, just to level set us. And then we'll really just jump into talking about our current goals and activities and how we want to calibrate those, change those, drop any, enhance any, and then we'll spend up to 5 minutes on next steps. And so I'm really using our PowerPoint presentation with the Board of Selectmen for the very quick walkthrough of our history. Starting up here in the top, in February of 2019 was really the event that was the catalyst for this group. It was a blackface incident with several students at the high school. If you go down from there, in May of 2019, we had a town forum with the Department of Justice. Prior to that, there were several public meetings that the Board of Education had that also had input. And then if we go back up to October of 2019, we really convened our first meeting as a Spirit committee, which was a direct outgrowth of the work done with the Department of Justice Forum. And then going down, we defined our mission and vision and our top 3 priorities and our subcommittees. And then going down on March of 2020, we initiated the implicit bias work, as well as beginning to do other activities. Just going up to July of 2020, we launched the monthly Let's Talk. Going down to August of 2020, we had the Spirit banner hung over Iron Horse Boulevard. And then going up to September of 2020, that's when we had the Yes resolution for us going to the Board of Selectmen. And then really, as you all know, in September, the Board of Selectmen was presented with both the resolution which they approved, as well as approving the Spirit Committee as a town committee. So that's just our history. All of our current goals flow directly from things that were identified at the town forum. And so there is a history that's very linear, but as I point out, we have some new products and documents that speak to and can inform us going forward. So that's kind of the history review. And so just jumping into the review of goals and activities, just a couple of things I want to point out. So at the Department of Justice meeting, where there were approximately 75 participants, that group identified key areas of concern, of which they identified probably about 12. And then groups formed to come up with potential solution ideas to those areas of concern. What we did last year in our initial setting of goals is we actually narrowed those areas of activity down to a sub list that we then voted on. And here's the actual vote results when we set the goals last year. The votes that were highest were townwide campaign with a positive slogan, outreach to organizations and citizens and groups in town, determine an expert resource to partner with Simsbury for audit. You'll see those were all in the low 20s, and then we jumped down to 14 to create a culturally inclusive events. And then you'll see down from there, there were activities that got 7 votes all the way down to ultimately 1 vote. So again, I'm just showing this with you so you understand, for people who weren't involved in the process, how we kind of got to our 3 committees, because it really was from these first 4 items that we identified that we'd have an events committee, an outreach committee, and a data committee. And just very quickly, the event subcommittee, their purpose is to create opportunities that promote diversity and inclusion, allowing for personal growth through exposure to a variety of ideas, experiences, and cultures that make meaningful contributions to our community. This is actually what was presented to the Board of Selectmen. Their plans were the Let's Talk Monthly, cultural food truck event, cultural music events. And these were activities that were identified that they would be working on in 2020 as well as 2021 via the Let's Talk calendar, including the one on the 5th for Indigenous people. So, that's just giving a little overview of the purpose of that committee, what their current activities have been. And then the second is we have the outreach committee, the purpose of which is to promote awareness of Spirit Committee and partner with other organizations locally and regional to drive progress in diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Plans that they identified for the Board of Selectmen was reach out and connect with organizations, facilitate racial history discussion series, SPL as well as SCTV, partner with Simsbury groups, also working on diversity and inclusion initiatives, Facebook groups, etc. Collaborate with regional and state entities such as the PAC, towns, universities, health equity solutions, etc. And they just shared organizations that they wanted to reach out to or in process of reaching out to, as well as organizations for partnering with. And then our third committee and final was the Data Audit Committee. And the purpose was to gather data and to assess progress towards diversity and inclusion goals developed by the Simsbury Spirit Council. The plans were to engage an expert to assist with gathering and analyzing multifaceted, quantitative and qualitative context-specific data, recommend follow-up plans or actions with community involvement, create benchmarks using existing and not yet collected data, and monitor progress. And one thing they showed the Board of Selectmen was this is just an example from a survey to the community for Marion, Iowa, trying to get a pulse of how members in the community feel relative to issues of inclusion. So I'm just sharing all those with you. Again, just to level set what those committees are focused on, what some of the most recent activities are. And we're really on to really what would be the key question, which is with where we are today, what would be activities that we would want our subcommittees in particular to focus on? Any that we would want to drop? Are there additional activities that we want focus on? Are there additional subcommittees that we want formed for particular purposes? We really will simply begin to talk about what are we doing that we want to tweak? What are we doing that we want to add? And what I'm going to do as we're doing that is switch from this PowerPoint to trying to capture all of our conversation right here. So with that said, I'll really ask the question, and we really can begin to explore, are the things that why don't we start with gaps? Are there things that we need to be doing that we're not doing currently? Go ahead, Nicole. And anyone can speak in, so.
Yeah.
One thought that is coming up lately is speaking with and connecting with people who may not think that we need to be doing this work, or who hold different points of view than the people we're currently engaging with in our community.
Yep. And do you have ideas as to how we would do that?
We were just talking about this in our events subcommittee meeting prior to this, and I think we have a plan A and a plan B for December and January Let's Talk events, the first Thursday of each month. And plan A is to hold listening sessions that the data committee we would like to partner with to help construct and structure. We are thinking of asking perhaps some town leaders of different spheres of influence. Perhaps Eric Wellman and Sean Askham, for example. I don't know if they're available. We haven't even gotten that far, but just to invite people to be included for the listening, not to answer, not to hold anyone accountable, to come up with a plan, but to spend more time listening. It's one of the major things we learned from Decatur, Georgia, was they spent a lot of time intentionally listening. We listened in May. A lot of the main issues may not have changed, but the nuances, it's been a heck of a year we've all lived through, and we're going to go through this election tomorrow. And so just having a chance for different parts of the community to be heard would be important for us to really understand I think, better how our community is feeling right now.
Nicole, I just want to make sure I didn't quite capture the very last part of your first sentence, but I want to use your own words. Engage with people who do not, and so what was your language?
To engage with people we're not currently reaching.
Yep.
Specifically those that might not value or think this work is important for Simsbury.
Okay. Other ideas, things that, again, you don't have to be limited to things we're not doing. It's really, what's your inspiration in terms of areas of focus, things we need to do? Other thoughts out there? Anyone can speak up if you want to.
I would like to just speak up. It just seems in looking at all the chatter around and the signs and stuff like that, if we could do, it seems like it's important to make it clear that working towards diversity and inclusion does not mean it's not exclusive of supporting the police. It's a partnership with our law enforcement. One doesn't have to be exclusive of the other. So I feel like that needs to be addressed.
Okay, and what would be some activities or actions by which we would address that?
Well, I think that having police presence when we did the Let's Talk series, I remember Chief Bolter was there, so that was helpful. I don't know, just I don't know. I'm willing to hear ideas. I'm just.
Yep. Okay.
One of the things that I've heard from other groups, like the Facebook groups and other grassroots type organizations, is emphasizing the difference between diversity and inclusion. And I'm not sure that we have specifically addressed that. And I'm sure some of you might disagree with that, but diversity for the sake of diversity is not necessarily the goal, I think, even though and diversity is different than inclusion. Inclusion is a feeling of welcoming and feeling a part of the community. And that is something that's a lot harder to define than simply counting heads. And I would welcome, our other community members' feelings on this, because I've been feeling this sort of gap there that we haven't really gotten to the heart of that.
Agreed.
Yeah. And, Cheryl, to that point, it's a hard thing to achieve because, as you say, a lot of people don't understand it. And someone made a reference to it once in a conversation, and their discussion of it was, or their definition of it was, that diversity is when you invite me to the party.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have some different people at the party. But inclusion is when I'm not just standing on the side, but you invite me onto the dance floor and we're all mingling and we're all dancing, we're all interacting. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the part of diversity and inclusion that we need to get everyone to start to understand and comprehend, that it's not just having different people there, but as you said, welcoming them and including them in all aspects of what we're doing.
And I would go further to say that diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being part of planning the party.
Yes, yes.
I'm not really sure how we get there. I mean,
Yeah, so let's discuss.
One of the things we just discussed in the event that Nicole talked about a little bit was this listening event, but also asking the community, why do we want diversity and inclusion in Simsbury? What does that mean to you? Like, why should we have diversity and inclusion? Because I think there's a bunch of us that are working towards it, But there may be people saying, but why is it necessary?
Right.
Why do we need this? So let's hear from them on, okay, well, why don't we need it? Or why do you think we are addressing this? Because I think here, we have a vision, but if we're pushing forward to deaf ears, that's ultimately going to get us nowhere. So I think having that and asking that difficult question of, all right, well, why are we trying to make, what does it mean? Why should we have diversity and inclusion in Simsbury? Or why should we not, in some people's opinions?
But for me, it kind of goes back to the forum where we listened to a lot of people who live in Simsbury who gave specific examples of things that happened in their lives that made them not feel welcome, that they were hurtful or, and some of it was people who didn't intend to offend or to hurt anybody, but they did. And it's, I don't know, it's a puzzle. It's
right. But we go back to the people that were at that forum at Henry James, which there were a lot of people. But
right.
Those people were invited to go to that forum because of either connections in town or who they may be representing, where that's not necessarily the community giving feedback on why we should have diversity and inclusion. Those people would already have the buy-in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not necessarily, Diana. What we did in that invitation is to take a look at whose voices were present and whose voices weren't. And we were very strategic in offering an extended invitation to those who would bring differing viewpoints to that discussion purposefully, because that aside, I think it's really important, and I don't know if that is through the survey mechanism, to get a kind of pulse around where members of the community are at relative to some of these concerns, issues, and our mission as Spirit.
If I may add on to what Sue has just shared, I think that it would be, rather than having kind of a listening session where, in the way I think about that, you're dropping a net over the side of the boat, you wind up with a whole ton of stuff in there. There's often a lot of work that goes into figuring out what it is that you've brought up. I wonder if it would be more helpful for us to come up with a few, 3, 5 max questions that would be helpful to our committee and to guide us and to seek feedback on those issues. To ask people to grapple with what it is that we are attempting to discern, rather than just to say, talk to us about this experience. That's fine, and that can be a really valuable time, but that will bring with it a very, very large spectrum. If that's what we're seeking, good, great, let's do it. If we'd like some specific answers to gauge specific directions for us to move forward, which I think would probably be helpful to us, then I think it would be helpful to ask, they don't have to be laser focused questions, but they should get us certainly within the neighborhood of where we want to be.
And to add to that, Jean, I think that was a really good point about being strategic in the questions that we ask. And I think as part of the data subcommittee, that it will be very important for us to, and just in general for the whole Spirit committee in general, to look at the resolution that we came up with and use that to help drive the work that we're doing in the community, and also within the different departments in Simsbury and the different commissions and things like that. Using that, I mean, there's a lot of poignant pieces inside of that resolution that can speak to the work that we said that we would do in our mission, and following that and using that as a driver will be key.
So one question I would ask is, just picking up on that, are there, as you looked at the resolution, are there pieces that you would add? So part of what we'd like to get out of tonight is begin to actually identify what are those pieces from the resolution that we want to make sure that we integrate into, our goals or priorities.
Being intentional in, I would say being intentional in who we're hiring, policy and procedures that we create and how they impact the community. Let's see, just different things that are going on in the community, within the departments, and how those impact us.
Yep.
Impacts the community and impacts the work that we're going to be doing.
Tanisha, I would add, I know I've been in a couple of subcommittee discussions where people have mentioned housing as an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to throw that out there out of the fact that people mentioned that in the past.
I'm wondering if we have a vehicle in which to like gather some information, and like you're talking about some of those poignant questions that need to be asked and get the pulse of the community. Like I'm obviously trying to figure out how to gather that data, and I'm wondering if we need to send out a survey. Do we have like a Facebook page? Do we have, how would we reach out to the community in large and try to get that?
I think that we start with hiring someone that's independent of the town to be able to, and that has an experience in doing this kind of work, to be able to help us formulate the questions that that we would be asking to members of the community and to staff that work in the town as well. This person, I would say, would have to have a lot of experience in collecting data across towns, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data, so that we are, getting, and again, an independent person, so that we won't be able to say, no one will be able to say that, oh, this information is skewed this way or that way. Someone that isn't involved in the politics of the town to be able to help us make an informed decision about things that we do going forward.
I think one of the things also that it's going to be difficult, but if we can identify groups or that are of the mindset that this is unnecessary, and if we can create one-on-one conversations with them, because a lot of time people fear what they don't know, and they hear diversity and inclusion and they say it's going to be a bad thing, and they don't know exactly what it is. So if we can identify specific groups or organizations or people with influence who have that mindset and bring them to the table, have a sit down with them and have a conversation, because a lot of times lately when we have those conversations, when people are talking about it, they're not having a conversation. People are just yelling at each other, but creating that environment where we can sit down with groups, organization, or individuals of that mindset and have that conversation to walk them through whatever those fears are, which they may not even realize is a fear.
Okay, continue with that theme, because that was a concrete suggestion relative to this issue up here that people felt pretty strongly about, which is really getting to the heart of not diversity but true inclusion, and really emphasizing the difference between diversity and inclusion. We have a lot of general statements up here, but not a lot of concrete, how do we do it? And this was one specific idea. So what are some other concrete ways, tasks, initiatives, assignments to subcommittees that might help with that?
Well, and this could be part for the outreach committee. I think this would be perfect assignment. something that we've done on the Aging and Disability Commission is creating we're looking at creating an age-friendly community, being certified as an age-friendly community. And something I worked with Sue, and we're continuing with the Aging and Disability Commission, is also the disability-friendly community, which goes along with our diversity and inclusion. But how can we partner with those other organizations, not to just let them know who we are, but how do we create ourselves to be known as a diverse and inclusion friendly community? Like, we make a stamp and work with those other organizations to be an official, give ourselves a stamp of, we are, partnering with you for you as an organization and you as a business to be welcoming to diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, and I wonder if, I love that strand, Diana, because I know where we were taking it relative to disability. And I wonder how well known in some of the businesses and through the chamber or through other community organizations, that they're aware the degree of the proclamation, quite honestly, and what the town has shared, and maybe table talk conversations, Zoom at this point, I guess, but around what that means as business owners, as community organizers, and just start that dialogue so that they're aware that this is taking place and what we're looking to do.
I think another way that we could possibly get other community organizations and businesses involved is highlight them on our webpage, as well as this is an organization or business that supports inclusivity, and also this is how they're doing it. And it's free ad space, right? For one.
We can't advertise on a town.
It promotes their business.
We can't advertise on a town website, but we're
it's not really advertising.
Yeah, I know.
You're saying, like, you're putting in a plug, like you're not promoting a business per se, but like say, hey, in the Spirit Council, this is the organization or the business that supports the Spirit Council.
Right. Like the business has taken the diversity pledge. Like,
Yes.
the Spirit Council, Spirit Committee pledge,
Right.
Or
that's what we were kind of thinking, like you have some kind initially, and we actually did a presentation to the chamber, and it didn't get legs, and wanted to come back at another angle, creating some kind of seal, right? That businesses, by putting that seal in their window, they visibly state, like, we are a business that supports inclusive, friendly practices, and talking through what that would mean. But maybe there is an element of this, that outreach we can discuss as a subcommittee around, equitable practices and pledges.
Yeah.
The chamber did actually reach out to us. And I don't know, Lloyd, did you have a chance to get back with them?
Which group?
The chamber.
No, I have not yet. I have them on my schedule.
Yeah, so they did.
Okay.
And I think they saw, the resolution come up as part of the Board of Selectmen agenda.
Okay.
So that was really positive that they reached out to us, which I thought was terrific.
That's
fantastic. So yeah, I think that's great. I guess what I want to know is that meaningful? I mean, if Lloyd, if you went into a store and you saw that sign or seal, what would that mean to you?
If I saw it, the first thing I would look at how they treat me, and then it would at least, first it would give me a sense that, okay, maybe this is a place where I can feel safe to shop around and find what I'm looking for and feel welcome. And if that is the experience, then when I leave, I'm going to be telling other people about that.
Oh, That would be it. Yeah.
So.
Because interestingly enough, what came out of one of our previous Let's Talk chats, actually 2 of them, and this is something that we can then bring to businesses potentially, not that we're advertising or anything, but as we work with chamber and businesses to say, this is how it also, this is what could, how it is meaningful to be inclusive for diversity and abilities. You know, that you go to local grocery stores and you can't find what you're looking for your culture and your ethnicity and whatever. So when you're not seeing what should be available to you, kind of like for a disability purposes, if you can't get into the store for accessibility purposes, you can't shop there. But where are businesses falling short of servicing our community when they're not providing what our community needs? So our people in our community are forced to go outside of our community to shop because their needs aren't being met here. So that is where we can then bring to businesses, local businesses, of how they can be welcoming and inclusive and diverse for their customers. And that is very concrete and something that I think not only is it a seal, but then they see that they're providing things for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, something that COVID kind of hijacked is that we were talking about how one of the best ways to get to know people, and Lloyd was sort of implying this, you know, maybe talk one-on-one, were events, like have a musical event down on the fields. And, you know, I don't know about all the permissions. We talked about food. We might not be able to do that. But if we gathered and had events where people, music and food are always things that people gather around, and instead of just talking about what we ought to do and talking about, I mean, talking is good. I don't mean it's not, but I think that once this virus, and if we ever get back to normal, we should consider that. We also talked about maybe working across towns. Like there was some talk in Let's Talk about maybe partnering with Bloomfield Library. And then the final thing, and this might be for you, Sue, is I would love to get, I mean, I'm a teacher. I would love to get high school students, grade school students involved in some, I don't know, art contests, essay contests, having them form their own council at Simsbury High School, like a Justice League or something. I think that we can't just do it by ourselves as adults.
Agreed. And to be able, Carol, because there is such a group at the high school that's kind of forming, at least to share these efforts across the public schools and the non-public schools, and ways to empower our youth.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what, Sue? A few years ago, I'm not sure which one of my children it was, but they went on a field trip to the 4-H farm. It was at Squadron, so it could have been either
farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when they went, there was also another school there from Hartford.
Yeah.
And the children partnered up with another kid from a Simsbury kid partnered up with a kid from Hartford. I thought that was a very good experience. I'm not even sure if they did that recently, because I can't remember which child. I know it hasn't been with my youngest one. But that was a good experience. So maybe that's in terms of trying to figure out how we can partner with other districts. That could possibly be something again that happens.
Yes.
Any other glaring things missing from your point of view? I heard some discussion in one of my subcommittees about the vibrancy of our social media outreach, networking efforts. Just trying to think of things I've heard from people. Any other things that stand out?
How about a way to identify how we could get more minority owned businesses in town?
It might be good, I think, at some point to maybe connect with on points like this with the Economic Development Commission.
Mhm.
And they might be able to help generate some ideas or work through some of these points.
Okay. Any other ones out there?
Kristen, I have a question. I'm looking through the resolution and two things are jumping out that we haven't talked about deeply. One was working across towns and other organizations to form alliances. But specific for you, Kristen, is there anything from your vantage point that we could do just to be more inclusive in parts of the community that don't often interact with each other? Like, I know that you have a cheese day. I don't know if a lot of people are volunteering or like you had, I think just promoted the invitation to help with families' Christmas wish lists kind of thing. I'm wondering if social services in Simsbury, helping other Simsbury residents would be something that I know that we won't get to see and know everyone you're helping, but you're helping alongside other people you wouldn't know. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to make that a little bit more robust and inclusive. Just the working together is what I'm trying to get at.
So just so I'm understanding correctly, are you asking in terms of being able to connect with other volunteers that are helping us, or are you asking about connecting with the clients?
No. Volunteers, like working together with other people to do something good.
Sure. We welcome volunteers from anywhere. We're tapping shoulders right now to fill up spots for the next cheese day because we're moving inside from an outside distribution. So in an 8-hour day, we're going to be distributing 140 boxes from the doorstep. So we welcome volunteers from anywhere. So if anybody wants to do that, I mean, Simsbury SPIRIT could even sign up to take on Cheese Day, potentially as a commitment and have maybe 1 or 2 of you at each month volunteering. I certainly would welcome that idea. And we do try to do some different variety of who's there. We invite Board of Selectmen members. We've had different department heads that have come. We have members of faith-based organizations that are there volunteering. So yeah, I think if you want to think about that, I absolutely would welcome it. And just in terms of connecting with members of the community, you wouldn't really be able to connect directly with our clients. If there was information that you wanted us to get out to them, 140 people in one day is a lot of people to reach. So if you had a flyer or something that you wanted to include in their package, we could certainly do that. We could put things on our social media. I could also invite you, if you'd like to, you could do a Zoom session with our seniors. We have Zoom sessions that run every day, all week long. And, if you'd like to come and have the floor and talk about what Spirit is and Spirit does, I can get you scheduled for that too.
Kristen, can you explain what Cheese Day is? Because there may be people on here who don't know what Cheese Day is.
Sure. Just excuse me for a second. I came down with a little bit of a cold. So Cheese Day is our major food program where we provide non-perishable food items as well as fresh produce to any Simsbury resident that qualifies. And pre-COVID, we were serving 80 households once a month. That was our average. And since the pandemic has started, we're now up to 140 households each month. And about 30 of those are also homebound deliveries. So we're getting out to the folks that absolutely need it the most. We provide food. We're also getting commodities from Red Cross. So we've got a partnership there. And we also use those folks as our base for other programs, such as our holiday program, which is coming up, which Nicole mentioned. I've been kind of vocal on Facebook looking for sponsors.
Another idea I had that we've talked about in the past was really working through also the Department of Justice gentleman we're working with, Derek Dean. He said, suggested houses, leaders of faith communities, clergy, rabbis. I think we have a group that already meets, but just seeing if they would engage in sharing a message of what it means to be a diverse community, and how we do that in this climate is probably more important than ever. And his analogy was very interesting. When Cheryl and I were meeting with him, we didn't want to just keep preaching to the choir. We want to expand who we're talking to. And he said a lot of times those people that you want to reach and find hard to get to are in the pews. So that's just another group that we can maybe connect with. And
we actually did reach out to that group to let them know that this is what we were thinking, sort of as part of the outreach. And Gene had to leave, but he could probably tell you how I called him up and, sort of asked. That's sort of not asked, but they are now discussing how they can get the message of diversity and inclusion out in a way of healing and, as part of the Thanksgiving message. We do have an ecumenical service here in town that involves all the different faiths, and it's a beautiful service. And we asked them to consider making diversity and inclusion part of the message. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I think we have to continue to focus on the fact that diversity and inclusion is not part of any political platform. If we want to attract the widest, the broadest number of people, we have to be sure that we're clear about the fact that not only our committee, but the philosophy of diversity and inclusion is not attached to anything political.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also can't forget the youth as well, and having them a part of the Spirit Council, and reaching out to them and getting their input on things that we're doing.
Well, I think Sue, I don't know if she's still here,
I am.
was going to look into our possibly having a student member of the Spirit Council. We haven't gotten there yet, but it is something that we left a space open for a student member, and I'm hoping that that person, whoever it is, will help us with that.
I'm actually hoping that we could potentially have a couple. But I know that there's a lot of grassroots from the youth happening right now, and certainly want to capitalize that both in the school buildings and the district equity council in here as well. And Carol, if you have some additional, potential connections, please, by all means, let's connect on that.
I think it would be fantastic, the amount of energy. These guys go from 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds when they're excited about something and passionate about something. We've got a group, Justice League group, that's been active for years. But we also have a white Students Against Racism group, which is a pretty interesting group. They read, and they reach out to kids in private schools, but I would love to see a partnership across the public-private line that you suggested, Sue. And I think having a member, a student or two on this committee would be a statement from us. I think, though, the more successful stuff would probably happen at the high school level with the students, but I'd love to see primary kids involved in some way too, with, like, as I said, just sort of, I don't know, contests like art stuff that would be, and then we'd have judges and they'd get ribbons and, the way the Simsbury Arts Council does or used to do. I think that we get the kids involved and the whole town will feel different about it.
All right, so with just a few minutes that I have left for this purpose on the agenda, what I thought would be worth doing is identifying to what extent these recommendations fit into our current subcommittee structures versus to what extent they're calling for some additional work. Let's just quickly go through and see, if these do or do not fall into a subcommittee. So the first is engaging with people who we do not currently reach. We had a whole host of issues around it. Is that something that fits into one of our subcommittees? Is that a outreach committee? Is that something different? We'll just put different or the committee's name. A proposal? Fair to say outreach?
I think it's part events too. I mean, part of what the events committee is doing is trying to bring in people into those programs to participate. And it's not exactly that goal, but it certainly fits, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But Chris, also, yeah, events outreach, and also the data, the listening and intentional listening would be, what do we want to ask? So I also actually think it's data in there too. Maybe each bullet is a different group.
Yeah, let's start with the general bullet and then we'll refine it later. I just thought if we could get some good initial direction, or maybe let me put it this way, because we are going to run out of time. Generally speaking, is the expectation that we want to fold these within current committees, or are we seeing some things in here that are really calling for some additional groups?
I'll jump in there. We won't be able to add any additional subcommittees right now. So if we can fold it into the existing ones, I think that would make the most sense.
All right, Kristen, just let me start with, I do understand that from a content point of view, are there any that stand out as really new and different and not forming into one of our current groups currently?
The one that sticks out to me is working with the police, and I would add to that, you know, any kind of first responder and any kind of authority, you know, a group of authority in town is not really, although it could be outreach, I think that is the one that sticks out the most as could be its own kind of group to focus on, to make sure that we're covering in that type of group, and you know, and so that's what sticks out to me. I know they're representative here, and I think that's great. It may be something that needs its own focus.
Okay. Thank you, Diana. Any other ones that stand out to you as maybe needing a different group?
The one that stands out to me is maybe, and it's the partnership with the Equity Council, maybe, that we haven't actually addressed as a specific separate item. But all the great ideas about working with students and different student groups cross over into equity. And I know we're going to hear from Sue, you know, a specific update from that. But we haven't actually assigned anybody from this committee to do something specific with the Equity Council. And I don't know if we should, but that sort of stands out to me as something that's a little dip outside of what our three subcommittees do.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Cheryl.
Chris?
Yep.
Are you ready? Can I talk?
Absolutely.
I think up a little bit was the piece on marketing, social media, that kind of a person who can invest the frequency of time in messaging and have some expertise to kind of make us relevant.
Yep.
Communications.
And that might be part of outreach. I mean, it might just be something that has to happen in outreach, but
it's a big job.
It's a big job. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we have anybody here with those skills, I mean, everybody, I think we tend to think, oh, somebody could just do that. But if you have somebody who's really, maybe it's their job, that makes a huge difference. I don't know if there's anybody in the group. Maybe they're hiding.
To what extent do we start reaching out to other people in the town to perhaps help us with some of this work? It seems like it's a lot. And it's almost like the subcommittees can be a steering kind of force and just ask for, you know, more involvement, because like I'm trying to think of like communications. I know someone who did this for Johanna Hayes when she was trying to get elected. And he's a Simsbury resident. He's a kid, the Simsbury graduate, in fact. But you know, he's not part of this group, and I'm wondering if he would be interested in doing it. I don't know.
It is one of the things that we're going to talk about is, you know, we're limited in the number of people that can be on the steering committee by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
We do have one space technically open, but we do have spaces for people to volunteer. And it's, you know, one of those things we're going to have to work on delineating is how we bring the volunteers in, what is their you know, their space.
Yeah, because I'm
with the
seeing a
rest
lot.
of us.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of the different things that are going to require more volunteers, not just us, to do
Right,
all of the
exactly.
work.
Will we be able to kind of prioritize and focus to say, hey, what is the first steps that we'll be able to do? And then once we identify that, then be able to reach out to the people who can help us do that, rather than kind of looking for volunteers before we know what our next
Right.
course of action.
Well, I think I'm going to turn it back to Chris, because that was sort of where we were headed, so that everybody can consider all of these things we've talked about. We can get comments from the public who might be listening, people who might be listening who would like to help us, and then come back at our next meeting and sort of crystallize what the actual goal is and how we're going to do it. Did I talk too much for you, Chris?
No, that's perfect. And what I would do with these notes is try to put them into, you know, buckets, as I've attempted here, but can do a better job once I have a chance to edit this. So that's it exactly, Cheryl. That would be our next step, is to take these, package them, get them out to people, get comment, and then bring it back to the next meeting. So I appreciate everyone's time. A great conversation. I think we have some really good things here. What I like is there's a lot of synergy between, you know, goals that we have, some of the efforts that we've started. So it feels that this can fold into a certain direction that we're already going and just do it more effectively. So thanks everyone for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this, Chris. That was great leading this discussion. Okay, so we just kind of touched on the protocol for new members and volunteers. And, you know, as I said, we're very limited in people who can join us now, because, you know, we're almost at our max. We have a space set aside for a student, and we do have one additional member space open. So that's kind of where we are now. However, we do have volunteers who can help us, and I think we should figure out a way to effectively bring them in and engage them in these activities. So if you know people who want to volunteer, if there's anybody out there watching who wants to volunteer, if you have a specific thing that you would like to work on, that will come. So I think a lot of that is going to come out at the next meeting when we get down to specifics, but I'd certainly open up the discussion to all of you if you have any thoughts on how we do that. Okay, well, I think you get it. So it's a lot to think about. And then after that great discussion, I can see why we're kind of stuck on that. So we also touched on marketing. Again, I think it's a need that we have, and it is a specific skill set. So we are open to someone who can help us with that. Any other thoughts on that?
I think that's good. I think we also should think about someone who's heavy into guiding us with data collection, who's good with actually being able to interpret data that we see. That would be someone that I would think would be a great addition to our team.
Yes, that's a great point. Yep. Okay.
And that's where
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We could potentially touch on one of the things we just did if we did target marketing, and we have somebody who knows and can help with not just marketing our committee, but then does some target marketing for certain events or topics or things that we're looking for, could then touch on some of the issues that we just brought up with Chris 2 seconds ago. So
Yeah.
it would be great if we had somebody who could help us with that kind of marketing as well.
Okay, so for all you people listening out there.
Hey, Cheryl, Cheryl,
Yeah,
we actually, if you remember, when we were on the board, the town's mechanism where people volunteer at the town website saying, hey, I have an interest in doing this.
yes,
It's a generic, I'm volunteering in general because I have an interest in things. We had fairly good success with that. And I
We
don't
did.
know if we have anything up there yet relative to this committee.
oh, that's a great point. Kristen, is that possible to put that on our website? Look to sign up as a volunteer?
For Spirit Committee, I can
Yeah.
certainly ask. I'll find out for you.
That would be great.
Then maybe we could ask specifically what they're interested in.
Yeah.
So we could give them this, find their space, like you were
Mhm.
saying. And then, Cheryl, we were talking back up to number 4 about the process for appointing new members and the
Mhm.
volunteers. We have at least one open space. I'm not sure. It seems like we may possibly be having 2. Not because of an expansion, because someone may be not able to fulfill the commitment they thought they were making. I'll follow up and see for sure. But you, Tanisha, and I, can we set up a time to phone call the 3 individuals that we know are actively interested in pursuing those open seats, so we can speak with them and get to know a little bit about them, and then put that up against the needs that we have currently, data and marketing specifically?
Yeah. Is everybody okay with that? I think it's good. Okay. We just wanted to bring to your attention, the group For All Ages is having a luminary event on December 6th. And part of the event is the Unity Mile. And if you buy a luminary kit, you get one and they have another one, and they're going to set up a mile of luminaries down Hot Meadow and call it the Unity Mile. And when they asked me, I thought that was something that all of us would certainly buy into. I think it's a powerful symbol, and I would encourage you to look into it. They have some information on Facebook, and I think they might have their own website, although I'm not sure. They're called For All Ages. They are very interested. What their main focus is, connecting people with younger people with older people. That's what they do. And so far they've done great work. They've built Adirondack chairs. You might have seen them around town. You know, young people working with older people, you know, painting and building and doing all these things. It's terrific. But they want to focus on the Unity Mile, and I thought that was something that we could get behind too. So
Cheryl, they do have their own webpage, and right on the front page, it says buy your luminary kits for Simsbury's Unite by Light event today.
Yep.
So it's forallages.org.
Yep.
Thank you.
I bought one outside of Fitzgerald's last weekend, so sometimes they're out there too. Okay, so let's move on to our update from the Equity Council. If Stu is here, there she is.
I am. So thank you very much. Our Equity Council continues to meet monthly. We've had a couple of updates. So first, we're developing 2 different subcommittees, and about 50% of our membership responded that they may be interested in subcommittee work. One, and it's a topic that we just discussed here tonight, is specifically around communications. And what do we communicate? How do we do that? And how do we do that most effectively to our different audiences around information that we are examining and additional steps that we're taking as a school system. The second committee is going to be more of a planning committee to look at our monthly meeting structure and topics, and how do we take the appropriate feedback from our membership and develop it into a meaty agenda. So subcommittees will be meeting once a month. Our large committee will be meeting once a month. Our district goals are to continue to conduct our survey and our data analysis on information that we have both on student achievement sides of things, as well as kind of climate and culture. So Equity Council in the summer had their first glimpse at some of that data. And we're actually going to have 2 back-to-back meetings in November because we didn't get to the additional part of our data analysis exercise. So on November 12th, we're going to complete that initial look at our data. And on the 19th, we will be joined by the Center for School Change to take us into the next step of that progress, to really delineate what are the root causes that we believe are behind that data and what it's showing us in our school communities. Tomorrow is a full day PD day for the Simsbury Public Schools, as many of our schools are polling places. So one aspect of PD will be a all school share of our equity statement that was developed by the Equity Council and adopted formally by our Board of Education over the summer. So there is an exercise that goes along with that share, and the majority of our faculties will be engaging in that discussion and really looking at that equity statement from many angles tomorrow. So over the course of this school year, in addition to a kind of a district look at our data, we're also going to be looking at the data of individual schools and to determine if there are certain themes in that information relative to next steps in good practices. So we're really excited about this work. We want it to be driven, you've heard me say time and time again, by our strategic plan, but also to marry that with what organically our school communities, as individual school communities, are passionate about relative to equity. So certainly we'll update you more. You know, the group has been kind of articulating the need to wanting to do more, and yet also recognizing that it's an advisory group. So we're working through that structure and look forward to updating Spirit Council and connecting with you, because that was really the initial kind of structure that there were some elements that we were going to be doing in and of ourselves, and then other elements of our work as Equity and Spirit that we would be connecting on. So we look forward to continuing that with Spirit Council.
Sue, if your data points to something in the community that perhaps we should talk about, are we going to work on that? I mean, is that something you can share, or?
Absolutely. The data that we're looking at now is more achievement data and culture data relative to access to clubs, activities, discipline. So it's really in-house at this point, but certainly if we believe that there are some root causes that are more community-based, it is a process that a lot of people want to go quickly through, but it's really important that you are kind of uncovering what is at the potential kind of source of that data. But to your point and your question, Cheryl, certainly if there is some community connection to root cause, we will share that with you. That is just a very natural connection.
That's great. Does anyone else have any questions for Sue, or? Okay, Lindsay, you want to update us on stuff from the library?
Hi. Sure, just a couple of points. As mentioned earlier, we do have our monthly event coming up this week with the Spirit Council or Committee. We did compile a sort of list of resources to use with the event this week. They are resources that the panelists suggest themselves, and then the library supplemented with a few other resources that we will provide during the meeting. We have also added more resources to the overall social justice list that was mentioned in the last meeting. And we're working on getting that up on the library's website sometime this month. And then in about actually 2 weeks from tonight, we have a second event with Spirit where we're having, let me get up her bio real quick, sorry, just a moment. We have an author coming. Her name is Manju Soni. She is was born and raised in South Africa, and she writes a book called Lions Roared, and it is comparing the racial separation of apartheid with America's own struggles with racism. And so she'll be coming to the library on the 16th.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
The resources list that you're going to share during the program on Thursday,
Yes.
this Thursday, should we share that on our Facebook page along with, with the flyer? Is that something that we can link to, or is that separate?
Yeah. So it is a Google Doc, so we can have a link that's shareable if you want to ahead of time. Sometimes Google Docs are a little hard to share in Facebook posts, but I can maybe try and save it as like a PDF or something that we can mail to all the registrants so that they can have a copy themselves when we send out the Zoom link. And actually, that reminds me, just to clarify a little bit earlier about registration for library events, when you do register, you get an automatic email confirming your registration, and then there's a second email on the day of the event with the Zoom link.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yep.
So with that Zoom link, the second email, we can send a PDF copy of the resource list, which I have shown to Nicole. She's looked over, but I could also send to the committee at large, maybe tomorrow for everyone to look over ahead of time if you'd like.
Yeah, I know I contributed a book that I really liked to the
Yep,
list,
that's
but
been added, yep.
I think that would be great because people might have other things that are
Sure.
meaningful to them.
Absolutely, no problem.
Does anyone have any questions for Lindsay while we're talking about the library program?
Just a huge thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. They're just terrific.
You're very welcome. Absolutely.
I couldn't think of a better way to partner with the library. Just everything is better with the library. There's your new tag.
Everything's better with the library. There's a close. There's a slogan.
I like that.
Thank you. Well, sure to be passed along to everyone else as well.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to touch on? Any old business we need to talk about, or something we missed? New business? Okay. All right.
Everybody vote.
Everybody vote. You may see me there. Our next meeting is Monday, December 7th. Same time, same place. Hopefully we go live. And
I already emailed IT to ask what went wrong.
if somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, Diana. Is there a second?
Second.
Sarah has seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I know y'all want to stay, but okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.